I'm sitting in my car in the driveway, engine off, hands still gripping the wheel. I'm 72 years old, and I'm wearing my sunny yellow cardigan with pearl buttons, the one I put on this morning when I still had a reason to care what I looked like. The duplex with a shared driveway and thin walls sits in front of me in Queens, New York, on this block of apartment buildings with kids playing outside. Their laughter used to make me smile. Now it sounds like mockery. Winter has settled in hard, the kind of cold that keeps you inside and makes the windows fog up from the warmth. But there's no warmth waiting for me in that house. Not anymore. The steering wheel is cold under my palms. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, maybe longer. The neighbor's cat walked across my hood earlier, and I barely noticed. My mind keeps replaying the last 2 hours, the disbelief, the shock, the way my entire world tilted on its axis, and I'm still trying to find my balance. I should go inside. My medication is in there. My heating bill is already too high to justify sitting out here with the engine off. But I can't move. I can't face that empty duplex with its peeling wallpaper and the crack in the ceiling that's been spreading for 3 years. I can't face the half-packed boxes in my bedroom, the ones I started filling when I realized I couldn't afford rent anymore. I can't face the reality of what my life had become before this morning. Before 3 bank officials came to verify my identity. 3 bank officials came to verify my identity before saying a word. That's what happened 2 hours ago. They brought me into a private room with soft chairs and artwork that probably cost more than my pension. They checked my ID 3 times, made phone calls, whispered to each other. I sat there in my yellow cardigan thinking they'd made a mistake. That this was about some old bill I'd forgotten, some debt collection notice. My hands were shaking. My blood pressure pills were wearing off, and I could feel the tightness starting in my chest. The youngest one, a man in his 30s with kind eyes and a wedding ring, brought me a glass of water. His hands were steady when mine weren't. He didn't say anything, just set it on the table beside me and gave me a small nod. Like he knew, like he understood that whatever was coming next would change everything. The walls of that private room were painted a soft cream color, inoffensive, designed to make people feel calm during difficult financial conversations. There was a painting of a lighthouse on the wall across from me. I stared at it while they made their calls. The lighthouse stood alone on a rocky cliff, waves crashing against the base, but the light at the top was shining steady and bright. I remember thinking how fitting that image was. Alone in the storm, still standing, still shining. I tried to prepare myself for bad news. Another fee I couldn't pay. Some account I'd forgotten about that had gone into collections. Medical debt from when I couldn't afford my prescriptions last year and ended up in the emergency room with my blood pressure spiking so high they thought I'd stroke out. I was ready for more punishment. Life had been punishing me for 2 months straight. What was one more blow? Then the manager sat across from me. She was younger than my daughter would have been if I'd had children. 40 maybe, with perfectly styled hair and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She folded her hands on the desk in a gesture I recognized, the compassionate preparation, the gentle setup before delivering news that would devastate or transform. I'd seen doctors do it, lawyers, landlords. She said a number out loud, $450,000. The words hung in the air between us. I heard them, but they didn't register. 450,000. It sounded like a foreign language, like numbers that applied to other people. People with retirement portfolios and investment accounts and children who visited on holidays. Not me. Not the 72-year-old woman in a yellow cardigan who'd been calculating whether she could afford both her blood pressure medication and groceries this week. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. She said them again, slower this time, enunciating each syllable like I might be hard of hearing. Your sister left you business shares. They've matured. The account is active and it's yours. I'm sorry, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. Could you repeat that? She did. She explained about the shares, about the tech company my sister had invested in 20 years ago, about how it had been acquired, restructured, merged with a parent company, about how the shares had been held in trust, waiting for me to claim them, about how my sister had set up the account with specific instructions that only I could access it, that no one else had authority, that it had been sitting here, growing, waiting for 7 years. 7 years. Since Eleanor died. I don't remember what I said. I think I asked her to repeat it. I think I cried. I know I put my head down on that desk and sobbed so hard the manager brought me tissues and water and told her assistant to give us the room. My whole body shook. 72 years of holding myself together, and I came apart in that private room with the lighthouse painting and the soft cream walls and the young manager who looked at me with a mixture of pity and something else. Recognition, maybe. Like she'd seen this before. Like she knew what it meant when someone found hope after believing it was gone forever. Because 2 months ago, I lost everything I had. And I mean everything. My father took $250,000 from the family trust, forged my signature on documents I never saw, and gave it all to my brother to save a failing business that was already dead. He looked me in the eye and told me it was gone. All of it. My future, my security, my ability to survive the last years of my life without begging. And now I'm sitting in my car with paperwork that says I have nearly $500,000 in an account I didn't know existed. Money my sister left me 7 years ago when she died. Money she hid and protected because somehow she knew. She knew this day would come. She knew I'd be betrayed. She knew I'd need her. The paperwork is sitting on the passenger seat next to Eleanor's favorite Bible. The pages are thick, official, stamped with bank seals and notary signatures, account statements going back 7 years, transaction histories showing steady growth, maturation schedules, distribution options, all of it real, all of it mine, all of it Eleanor, reaching through death to save me one more time. Let me go back. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you what my father did to me. 2 months ago, I walked into his house for Sunday dinner the way I'd done every week for 40 years. The house I grew up in, the one Mom decorated with her ceramic figurines and family photos in mismatched frames. Dad kept everything exactly the way she left it when she died. Her reading glasses still on the side table, her sweater still hanging on the hook by the door, like he thought if he changed anything, he'd lose her all over again. My brother was already there with his wife. Dad was at the head of the table like always. We said grace. We ate pot roast. Everything was normal until my brother started talking about his construction business, about how the contracts had fallen through, about how he needed help or he'd lose everything. I'd heard it before. God, I'd heard it so many times. My brother had been failing at business for 20 years. Every venture crashed. Every partnership ended in lawsuits. He'd tried construction, then real estate development, then consulting, then back to construction. He had big ideas and no follow-through. He made promises he couldn't keep and burned bridges with every client. But Dad never saw it. To Dad, my brother was ambitious, a go-getter, a man trying to build something. I was just the daughter who'd worked the same secretary job for 43 years. My brother talked for 15 minutes straight. His wife sat beside him, nodding along, adding details about the stress he was under. The sleepless nights, the pressure, the unfairness of clients who pulled contracts without warning. It was everyone else's fault. Bad luck, bad timing, bad economy. Never his fault. Never his poor planning or unrealistic projections or inability to manage money. I ate my pot roast and waited for it to end. Waited for Dad to say something non-committal and change the subject. But he didn't. But then Dad looked at me and said, I helped him. I gave him what he needed. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I set it down carefully. The pot roast suddenly tasted like ash, and I realized he meant money. Family money. Money from the trust Mom set up before she died. Money that was supposed to be split 3 ways between me, my brother, and the estate. "What do you mean you helped him?" I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes before an explosion. Dad cut another piece of pot roast. Didn't look at me. I transferred some funds. Your brother needed capital. "Some funds," I repeated. "From the trust?" "I'm the trustee," he said, still not looking at me. "It's my decision to make." My brother was looking at his plate now. His wife had gone quiet. The air in that dining room changed, became thick, heavy. I could feel my heart starting to pound. I asked how much. Dad wouldn't answer. My brother looked at his plate. I asked again. Dad said it was handled, that it was his decision as trustee, that I should trust his judgment. The word trust. He actually used the word trust. I almost laughed, almost screamed. Did neither. Just sat there in the house I grew up in, at the table where Mom used to serve Sunday dinner, and felt something inside me break. I went to the bank the next morning. Didn't sleep. Spent the whole night staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe he'd transferred 10,000, 20, an amount that would hurt but not destroy. The trust had 300,000 in it. My share was supposed to be 100,000, enough to cover my medical expenses as I aged, enough to pay for the nursing home I knew was coming. Not enough to be rich, but enough to be safe. The manager showed me the paperwork. Transfer documents, loan agreements, liability waivers, all signed with my name. My signature, perfectly copied. My brother's lawyer had prepared everything. My father had signed as witness. $250,000 pulled from accounts my mother had set up to protect us. Gone. $250,000. My entire share plus most of my brother's, leaving just $50,000 in the trust. And even that would go to the estate, not to me. My father had made sure of that. I sat in that bank office and felt my whole body go cold. The manager was apologetic, professional. She showed me the documents one by one, explaining the transfers like she was teaching a child how money worked. This signature authorized this transfer. This document released the funds. This waiver protected the trustee from liability. But that's not my signature, I said. I was staring at my own name written in handwriting that looked exactly like mine, but wasn't. Perfectly forged, professionally copied. The manager looked at me with pity. She said the documents were legal. My father was trustee. He had authority. Even if the signatures were forged, I'd need to prove it in court. That would take years and money I didn't have. Years, I repeated numbly. Yes. She hesitated. And even if you could prove forgery, you'd need to prove malicious intent, that your father acted with deliberate fraud. Trustees have broad authority. The courts favor them. They assume good faith unless there's explicit evidence otherwise. He forged my signature. That would need to be proven through handwriting analysis, court testimony, expert witnesses. It's expensive and time-consuming. And she trailed off. And I'd probably die before I saw any money, I finished for her. She didn't deny it. I'm 72 years old. I worked 43 years as a public school secretary. My pension is $1,100 a month. My rent is $900. That trust money was supposed to cover medical bills, prescriptions, the nursing care I know is coming. My hands shake from arthritis. My blood pressure spikes when I can't afford the medication. I was counting on that money to survive, and now it's gone. The manager printed out copies of everything, handed them to me in a manila folder, told me I could consult with an attorney, gave me a business card for legal aid. Then she walked me to the door and I stood on the sidewalk outside the bank holding that folder and feeling like I'd been hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything vital and left just the shell. I confronted my father, went straight from the bank to his house, didn't call ahead, didn't prepare what I'd say, just showed up at his door with the manila folder shaking in my hands. He answered in his bathrobe. It was 10 in the morning. He used to be up at dawn, working in the garden, reading the paper. Now he shuffled around in his bathrobe until noon. Aging had made him smaller, frailer. I used to be afraid of him when I was young, afraid of his disappointment, his criticism, the way he'd look at me like I was never quite enough. I wasn't afraid anymore. I brought the documents. I showed him the signatures. He wouldn't look at me. He sat in his recliner, the one Mom bought him for his 60th birthday, and stared at the muted television. "You forged my signature," I said. "I did what needed to be done. You stole from me. I helped your brother. With my money." He finally looked at me. His face was blank, empty, like I was a stranger asking him about someone else's life. "Your brother needed it more. He has a family, a business, responsibilities." "And I don't?" My voice cracked. I hated that, hated showing weakness. But I couldn't help it. "My life doesn't count because I never married, because I don't have kids, because I worked a job you thought was beneath me for 43 years? He said my brother needed it more, that my brother has a family, a business, responsibilities, like I don't. Like my life doesn't matter because I never married, never had kids, never built something he could point to with pride. I have responsibilities," I said. My hands were shaking so hard the papers rattled. "I have rent, medical bills, a future I need to plan for. That money was supposed to protect me." "You'll figure it out," he said, turned back to the television. Dismissed me like I was a bill collector he didn't want to deal with. "You always do." I asked what I was supposed to live on. He said I'd figure it out, that I always do. That's when I knew. I wasn't his daughter anymore. I was expendable. My brother needed rescue, and I was the cost. I stood there in his living room surrounded by Mom's ceramic figurines and family photos, and I realized he'd made his choice. He'd chosen my brother, chosen him over me, chosen his comfort over my survival, and there was nothing I could do about it. The forgery was documentary. Perfect copies, professional work. My brother's lawyer must have practiced my signature from old birthday cards, old checks. Maybe from the Christmas cards I sent every year with my name signed at the bottom in my careful cursive. They'd studied my handwriting, replicated the loops and slants, made it perfect enough that the bank hadn't questioned it for a second. The transfers looked legitimate. The bank accepted them. There was no fraud alert, no verification call, nothing, because my father's name was on the account and he had legal authority. It didn't matter that my signature was fake. It didn't matter that I never agreed. The system protected him. I went to a lawyer. She looked at the documents and told me the same thing the bank did. Proving forgery against a family member with trustee authority would cost more than I'd recover. The courts favor trustees. They assume good faith. Unless I had explicit evidence of fraud, unless I could prove my father acted with malicious intent, I had no case. And even if I won, it would take years. My father would die before I saw a judgment. My brother's business would collapse, and the money would be gone anyway. "So there's nothing," I said. I was sitting in her office, a small space above a dry cleaner in Astoria. Legal aid, free consultation. She was young, earnest, genuinely sympathetic, but sympathy doesn't pay rent. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. I could tell she meant it. The law is designed to protect trustees who are acting in good faith. Unless you can prove your father forged your signature specifically to defraud you, and that he knew what he was doing was illegal, the court will assume he was acting within his authority. He forged my signature. Can you prove that? I stared at her. It's not my handwriting. Can you prove it's not your handwriting? In court? With expert testimony? I couldn't. Of course I couldn't. That would cost thousands, tens of thousands. So I had nothing. No recourse. No justice. Just the knowledge that my own father chose my brother over me, and there was nothing I could do about it. What made it unbearable was knowing my sister would have fought for me. 7 years ago, my older sister, who protected me from everything until cancer took her, would have burned my father's house down. She would have marched into that lawyer's office and destroyed them all. Eleanor was fierce and stubborn, and she never let anyone hurt me. When we were kids and the boys at school made fun of my stutter, Eleanor cornered them after class and threatened to break their noses. She was 10 years old and terrifying. The boys left me alone after that. When I was 23 and got dumped by my fiancé 2 weeks before the wedding, Eleanor showed up at his apartment at midnight and threw his clothes off the balcony while his neighbors watched. She got arrested. Dad had to bail her out. She didn't care. She said anyone who hurt me deserved worse. When I told her I was taking the secretary job at the school, she was the only one who didn't tell me I could do better. She said if it made me happy, it was good enough. She celebrated with me, took me out to dinner, told me she was proud. We had a complicated but loving relationship. We argued constantly about everything: politics, religion, men, money. But we always found our way back. She'd call me at 2 a.m. to apologize for something she'd said at dinner. I'd show up at her door with coffee and banana pudding, and we'd sit on her couch and make each other laugh until we forgot why we were angry. She once told me I was too forgiving, that I let people walk over me because I was afraid of conflict. I told her she was too aggressive, that she started fights where none existed. She laughed and said we balanced each other out, that I kept her from burning the world down, and she kept me from disappearing into it. When she got sick, I took care of her. I moved into her apartment. I cooked her meals. I drove her to treatments. I held her hair when she vomited. I read to her when she couldn't sleep, and when she died, I thought I'd die too. 7 years later, I still reach for the phone to call her. I still turn to tell her something and remember she's gone. The cancer took 18 months to kill her. 18 months of watching her shrink, of watching the fierce, stubborn woman who protected me become someone small and frail and frightened. She fought. God, she fought. But cancer doesn't care how fierce you are. It doesn't care how much you're loved or how many people need you. It just takes and takes until there's nothing left. I was with her at the end, holding her hand in the hospice room with the white walls and the smell of antiseptic and flowers people sent because they didn't know what else to do. She couldn't talk anymore. The morphine kept her somewhere between awake and asleep. But she squeezed my hand. 3 times. Our signal from childhood. I love you. I squeezed back. 3 times. I love you too. She died an hour later. She would have known what to do about Dad and my brother. She would have had a plan. But she's been dead 7 years, and I'm alone. After I found out about the money, I started packing. I couldn't afford to keep the duplex. I was 2 months behind on rent. The landlord was being patient, but I knew it wouldn't last. I started going through my things, deciding what to sell, what to keep, what to throw away. I sold Mom's china, the set she collected piece by piece from antique shops, service for $12. I got $200 for it, enough for 1 month's medication. I sold my books, boxes of them, mysteries and romances and the classics I'd collected over a lifetime. The used bookstore gave me $50. The owner looked apologetic, said nobody reads physical books anymore. I sold jewelry, not much. I never had much. But Mom's wedding ring, her pearls, my grandmother's brooch, another $300. I was selling my life piece by piece, and it still wasn't enough. I avoided my sister's desk, the bottom drawer. I'd filled it with her papers after she died, things I couldn't bear to look at. Bills, medical records, bank statements from accounts that were closed. I hadn't opened that drawer in 7 years. But last night I needed to find an old insurance policy, something to cash in. anything to survive on. So I finally opened the drawer I'd avoided since the funeral. The drawer stuck at first, swollen from humidity. I had to yank it hard and it came open with a screech that made me flinch. Inside was chaos. Papers stuffed in without order. Medical bills with red past due stamps. Bank statements showing accounts reduced to zero. Insurance policies that had lapsed. The paper trail of Eleanor's final months when all the money went to doctors and hospitals and medications that didn't work. I pulled everything out, spread it on the floor, sat cross-legged in front of the desk like I used to do when I was young, before my knees got bad and sitting on the floor became an ordeal. I sorted through it all, looking for something, anything. That's when I found it, a sealed envelope, thick, my name written on the front in her handwriting, and below my name, in her careful script, open when you need this most. I sat on the floor and stared at it. My hands were shaking. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive, the kind you use for important documents. The seal was still intact, red wax with her initial pressed into it. E. Eleanor. I thought about all the times I'd needed her in the past 7 years, when I got the cancer scare and had to wait 2 weeks for the biopsy results, when I fell and broke my wrist and couldn't work for 6 weeks, when Dad started forgetting my birthday, then forgetting to call at all, when the loneliness got so heavy I couldn't get out of bed. Why now? Why did I need this most right now? But I knew. Of course I knew. This was the bottom. This was as low as I could get. Broke, betrayed, about to be evicted. No options, no hope. I opened it. The seal broke easily. The wax crumbled in my fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a stack of documents. The letter was written in Eleanor's handwriting, shakier than I remembered. This was written near the end, when the cancer had spread to her hands and holding a pen was agony. The letter said, "You're going to need this someday. I made sure of it. Trust me one more time." That was it. 1 sentence. But it was enough. It was Eleanor. Straight to the point. No dramatics. Just the promise that she'd taken care of me one more time. The documents were stock certificates. Business shares in a company I thought went bankrupt years ago. A tech startup my sister had invested in back in the 90s when she worked in the city. I remembered her mentioning it once, how the company had folded, how she'd lost $10,000. She'd been so angry. She said she'd never invest in anything again. But these certificates told a different story. The company had been bought out, restructured. The shares had been converted into equity in the parent company. And according to the documents, they were still active. There were pages of documentation, transfer agreements, merger notices, shareholder notifications. All of it neatly organized with sticky notes in Eleanor's handwriting. Notes explaining what each document meant, what I needed to do, which bank to go to, who to ask for. She'd planned this, years ago. She'd seen the company reorganize, and instead of cashing out, she'd held on to the shares, let them mature, set up an account that only I could access, and then she'd sealed it in an envelope and written, "Open when you need this most." I didn't believe it. It had to be a mistake. The company was dead. Eleanor had told me it was dead. These papers were probably worthless. Old stock certificates from a defunct company that meant nothing now. But something made me put them in my purse. Something made me go to the bank the next morning. That's when 3 bank officials came to verify my identity before saying a word. They brought me into the private room, checked my ID, made calls. The manager finally sat down and told me the shares were worth $450,000. Enough to never depend on anyone again. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk and tried to focus on the lighthouse painting, alone in the storm, still standing, still shining. "I'm sorry," I said. "Did you say 450,000? "Yes." The manager smiled. It was a real smile. Warm, happy for me. "Your sister set this up very carefully. The account has specific instructions. Only you can access it. No one else has authority. Not a trustee, not a family member. Only you." I asked her to repeat it. She showed me the account statements, the transaction history, The maturation schedule. My sister had set this up with specific instructions. The account was to remain untouched until I claimed it. No one else had access. Not my father, not my brother, only me. The shares had been purchased in 1998 for $10,000. When the company was acquired in 2003, they'd converted to parent company equity. Eleanor had let them sit, reinvested the dividends, let them grow. By the time she died in 2019, they were worth $200,000. Now, 7 years later, they'd more than doubled. She never told me, I said. I was crying again. Couldn't stop. She never said anything. There's a note in the account, the manager said gently. She pulled up something on her computer. From when she set it up, it says, "For my sister, for when she needs me and I'm not there." I sobbed. Right there in that private room with the soft chairs and the lighthouse painting. Sobbed until I couldn't breathe, until the manager brought me more tissues and more water and told me to take all the time I needed. Eleanor had known. Somehow she'd known that one day I'd be abandoned, that one day I'd need her and she wouldn't be here. So she left herself behind in the only way she could. She made sure I'd survive. I'm sitting in my car now with her favorite Bible on the passenger seat, the one with passages she underlined in red ink. I grabbed it from my apartment before I came out here. I needed something of hers with me. The Bible is worn, the leather cover soft from years of handling. She used to read it every morning with her coffee, underlined verses that spoke to her, made notes in the margins. I opened it at random before I started the car. Landed on Proverbs 31, the passage about the woman of valor. Eleanor had underlined verse 25 in thick red ink. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She'd written in the margin, "This is you. You just don't know it yet." My hands are shaking as I hold the Bible now. 7 years she's been gone, and she's still teaching me, still protecting me, still making sure I know I'm worth something. I haven't been able to read my own worn Bible that sits on my nightstand open to Psalms in weeks. The words blur when I try. God felt far away when my father chose my brother over me, when the system failed me, when I had nothing left and no one to turn to. But maybe he wasn't far. Maybe he was working through Eleanor. Maybe this was the answer I'd been praying for. Maybe God uses the people who love us to reach us when we can't hear him directly. The kids are still playing outside. Their voices carry across the cold air. One of them is singing something. A nursery rhyme, maybe. The sound used to comfort me. Reminded me of when I worked at the school. When I'd hear children singing in the music room and it would make me smile. Winter keeps me inside most days, makes the windows fog up from warmth I don't have anymore. But soon I won't be here. Soon I'll leave this duplex with its thin walls and shared driveway, and I'll never come back. I need to tell you about the letter, the real letter. The one Eleanor wrote. When I got home from the bank that day, I sat on my bed and read it again. Really read it this time. The envelope had contained more than just the stock certificates. There was a letter, 3 pages, front and back. Eleanor's handwriting getting shakier as the pages went on. She must have written it over several days, maybe weeks, whenever she had the strength. Her handwriting was shaky. This was written near the end, when the cancer had spread to her hands. But every word was clear. She wrote, "I know you're reading this because something happened, something bad. Maybe Dad chose someone else over you. Maybe you're alone and scared and you think there's no way out. I know because I know you, and I know them. I've been watching Dad favor our brother our whole lives. I've seen how he looks at you like you're less than, like you're the one who didn't measure up. It's not true. You're the strongest person I know. You just don't see it yet. Do you remember when we were kids and you wanted to quit piano lessons? You said you weren't good enough, that you'd never be as good as the other kids. Mom wanted to let you quit, but I wouldn't let her. I made you keep going. You hated me for it. You didn't talk to me for a week. But then you played in the recital and everyone clapped and you smiled so big I thought your face would break. You've always been good enough. You've always been strong enough. You just let other people convince you otherwise. I set up this account 15 years ago. I took a risk on a startup, and it paid off bigger than I ever imagined. When I got sick, I had a choice. I could cash it out and spend it on treatments that might buy me 6 more months, or I could leave it for you, for the day you'd need it most. I chose you. I'll always choose you. The doctors wanted me to try experimental treatments, clinical trials. They said there was a chance, a small one, but it would cost everything. The insurance wouldn't cover it. I'd have to pay out of pocket. This account would have covered it, all of it, every treatment, every hospital stay, every medication. But the chance was so small, 5% maybe. And even if it worked, it would only give me months, not years, just months. And then you'd be alone, and I'd have nothing to leave you, no protection, no safety net. So I said no. I chose hospice. I chose to go gently instead of fighting for a few more months. And I chose to leave this for you, because I knew someday you'd need it more than I needed those extra months. Don't feel guilty about this money. Don't think you don't deserve it. You deserve everything. You deserve security and peace and a life where you don't have to beg anyone for anything. This is my gift to you, my last protection. Use it. Build something beautiful. And know that I'm still here. I'm still watching over you. I always will be. Trust me one more time. I read that letter 5 times. I cried so hard I thought I'd vomit. Collapsed on my bed with the letter clutched to my chest and sobbed until I had nothing left. Because she was right. About everything. About Dad. About my brother. About me being alone. She saw it coming years before it happened, and she made sure I'd survive. She gave up her chance to live longer so I could survive after she was gone. That's what love is. That's what sacrifice looks like. Not the dramatic kind in movies, the quiet kind. The kind that makes choices no one sees and leaves protection no one knows about until it's desperately needed. That's what love is. It doesn't end when someone dies. It doesn't forget you. It just waits in a drawer until you're ready to be rescued. My father called me 3 days after I found the money. He didn't know about it yet. He called because my brother's business had collapsed. The $250,000 was gone. The contracts were too far gone to save. My brother had filed for bankruptcy. Dad wanted to know if I had any money to help. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking instant coffee because I couldn't afford the good stuff anymore. When I saw his name on the screen, I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. Curiosity, maybe, or the need to hear what he'd say now that his golden child had failed. Hello? It's your father. Like I didn't know. Like caller ID didn't exist. I know. Silence. He wasn't used to the shortness in my tone, wasn't used to me not filling the silence with pleasantries. How are you, Dad? How's the weather? Have you been eating well? Your brother's in trouble, he said finally. I know. I did know. I'd heard through a mutual friend. The business had collapsed. The clients had sued. My brother was filing bankruptcy. The $250,000 was gone like I knew it would be. He needs help. I almost laughed. Help! Financial help, just to get through this rough patch. Rough patch, I repeated. My coffee was getting cold. I took a sip anyway. It tasted like bitterness. Appropriate. Do you have anything you could— No. He stopped. You didn't let me finish. I don't need to. The answer is no. But he's your brother. He's family. Family, I said. The word tasted like poison. Is that what we are? Of course we are, and family helps family. I almost laughed. I asked him why he thought I'd have money. He said I always figured things out, that I was resourceful. Resourceful, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you steal someone's inheritance and leave them with nothing? I didn't steal. You forged my signature. You took my money. You gave it to him and it's gone now, all of it. And you want me to give more? His voice got hard. The tone I remembered from childhood. The one that said I was being unreasonable, difficult. I made a decision as trustee, a decision I had the legal right to make, a decision that left me destitute. You're not destitute. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. I was 2 months behind on rent, selling my mother's china to afford blood pressure medication, planning which belongings to take to the homeless shelter when I got evicted. But I was being dramatic. I told him I had nothing to give, that he'd made sure of that when he forged my signature and stole my inheritance. He got quiet. Then he said I was being dramatic, that it wasn't stolen, that he made a decision as trustee, and I needed to respect that. Respect, I said. You want me to respect the decision to rob me blind. I didn't rob you. Your brother needed. I don't care what he needed. I don't care that his business failed. I don't care that he's bankrupt. He made his choices. You made yours. Now you both get to live with them. You're going to let your brother lose everything? Everything? Like I lost everything? Like that? Silence. I have nothing for you, I said. I have nothing for him. You made sure of that. So you'll have to figure this out on your own. You always were selfish, he said. His voice was bitter, angry. Your mother would be ashamed. And there it was. The weapon he always used. Mom. The saint who could do no wrong. The woman who'd loved us all equally according to him, even though I knew better. Mom had seen the favoritism. She'd tried to balance it. That's why she set up the trust, to make sure I'd be protected, and he'd destroyed it. I hung up. I blocked his number. I blocked my brother's number. I blocked my sister-in-law. I was done. The phone buzzed 3 more times before the blocks took effect. Voicemails I deleted without listening to. Text messages I erased. They tried email next. Subject lines I could see in the preview. Please, we need to talk. This isn't fair. Family should help family. Family should help family. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Karma handled them without me lifting a finger. My brother lost everything. His house went into foreclosure. His wife left him. Dad had to sell his house to cover debts my brother couldn't pay. They're both drowning now. And they keep trying to reach me. Emails, letters, messages through old friends. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine what happened next. My brother moved back in with Dad. 2 grown men in a small apartment, blaming each other for how everything went wrong. The business had collapsed spectacularly. Lawsuits from clients, lawsuits from suppliers. My brother owed hundreds of thousands in personal guarantees he'd signed without reading. Dad's house sold for less than market value. A quick sale to avoid foreclosure. The house we grew up in. The house Mom decorated with so much love. Gone. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town, the kind of place Dad used to say he'd never live in. My brother's wife filed for divorce, took their daughter, moved to her mother's place upstate. My brother gets supervised visitation once a month because she doesn't trust him, doesn't trust his judgment, his stability. They're both drowning now, and they keep trying to reach me. Emails, letters, messages through old friends. I don't answer. I don't owe them anything. Let them figure it out the way I had to. The help I needed came from someone I didn't expect. A woman at the bank, professional, mid-40s, sharp suit. She was the one who walked me through the account setup that day, who made sure I understood every detail. Her name was Patricia. She gave me her card after that first meeting, said to call if I had questions. Any questions, any time. I thought it was just professional courtesy, the thing bank managers say to clients. But a week later she called me, asked how I was doing, if I'd had time to process everything, if I needed help setting up the account transfers. I told her I was overwhelmed, that I didn't know where to start. She met me for coffee the next day, on her lunch break, at a quiet diner near the bank. She brought a folder full of information, brochures about different account types, information about estate planning. contact information for financial advisors who specialized in helping seniors. After we finished, she asked if I was okay. I must have looked as broken as I felt because she brought me water and sat with me for 20 minutes while I cried. She told me her mother had gone through something similar. A brother who stole the inheritance. A father who enabled it. Her mother died broke and alone because the system failed her. She was 78, Patricia said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the pain underneath. She spent her last 2 years in a state facility because she couldn't afford anything else. My uncle had taken everything, forged her signature on the deed to her house, sold it, spent the money. By the time anyone noticed, he was dead and the money was gone. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I was in business school when it happened, learning about finance, about how to protect assets, and I couldn't help my own mother." She looked at me with fierce eyes. "But I can help you." This banker said she couldn't help her mother, but she could help me. She connected me with an attorney who specialized in estate protection. Together they set up accounts my father could never touch, trusts with ironclad terms. They made sure that if my father tried to come after this money, he'd face criminal charges. The attorney was older, 60s maybe. She'd been practicing estate law for 40 years. She looked at my documents and knew exactly what had happened, said she'd seen it 100 times. Family members with trustee authority who abused it, forged signatures, transfers without consent. They get away with it because proving fraud is nearly impossible, she said, but we can make sure it never happens again. She set up irrevocable trusts, named me as the sole beneficiary, created legal protections that meant no one could access the money but me. If anyone tried, if anyone forged my signature or claimed authority they didn't have, it would trigger automatic legal action. Patricia and the attorney worked together. They didn't charge me, said it was pro bono, said they were doing it because it was right. Because Patricia's mother deserved better, and I deserved better, and maybe helping me would balance something in the universe. She didn't have to do any of that. But she saw what happened, and she cared. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person who decides your pain matters. I'm moving soon. Back to my old neighborhood where I still have friends from childhood. A small apartment. Quiet. No shared walls. No driveway where I sit in my car afraid to go inside. The apartment is in Astoria, the neighborhood where I grew up, where Eleanor and I used to ride our bikes to the corner store for candy, where we'd sit on the stoop in summer and watch the neighbors, where life was simple and safe and full of possibility. It's a 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor. No elevator, but my knees can still handle stairs. For now. The landlord is a woman my age who remembered me from the old days. She gave me a good rate. Said she was glad to have a quiet tenant who'd take care of the place. There's a small kitchen with a window over the sink. I can see the street from there. Watch people walking by. The living room is just big enough for a couch and a chair and Eleanor's desk. I'm bringing that. The desk where I found her letter. It feels important to keep it close. My rebirth is simplicity. At 72, I'm starting over. I'm embracing quiet freedom and solitude. No more family dinners. No more pretending everything's fine. No more making myself small so my brother can feel big. I'm buying new things. Not expensive things. Just new. A set of dishes from Target. Blue and white. Cheerful. Towels that aren't threadbare. A comfortable reading chair. Small luxuries I've denied myself for years because I was saving. Always saving. For emergencies. For the future. For security that got stolen anyway. Now I have real security. Money that can't be touched, can't be taken. And I'm going to use some of it to make my life comfortable. Eleanor would want that. She'd tell me to stop being practical and buy the good coffee. Get the soft sheets, live a little. Some nights I make banana pudding layered with vanilla wafers the way Eleanor used to. I eat it slowly and pretend she's across the table. I talk to her out loud. I tell her about my day. I thank her for saving me. I know she can't hear me, but it doesn't matter. Saying the words makes her feel close. Her recipe is in my head. I don't need to write it down. Layer of vanilla wafers, layer of pudding, sliced bananas, repeat, chill overnight. The next day, the wafers are soft and the flavors have melded and it tastes like childhood, like safety, like Eleanor's kitchen on Sunday afternoons. I make it in the same glass dish she used. I inherited it after she died. It's old, Pyrex. The glass is thick and heavy. There's a chip on one corner from where she dropped it once, and we both thought it would shatter. It didn't. She said it was tougher than it looked. Like us. I'm honoring her now the way she deserves. I set up a scholarship fund in her name for first-generation college students, kids who need someone to believe in them the way she believed in me. The fund is called the Eleanor Protection Scholarship. Eleanor was her name. Protection was what she gave me, even after death. I worked with the bank to set it up. Patricia helped again, said it was beautiful, that Eleanor would be proud. The scholarship gives $5,000 a year to a student from a low-income background. Someone who's the first in their family to go to college. Someone who needs help and deserves it. The first scholarship goes out next fall. A girl from the Bronx studying engineering. Her name is Maria. She wrote me a letter after she found out she won. Said her mother cleaned houses, her father worked construction. Nobody in her family had ever gone to college. She thought she'd have to give up her dream because she couldn't afford it. The scholarship changed that. $5,000. Enough for books and fees and some of the tuition. Enough to make college possible. Eleanor would have loved that. Would have loved Maria's determination, her fierce intelligence, her refusal to give up. Eleanor always rooted for the underdogs, the fighters, the ones who refused to stay down. The money didn't just save me financially, it saved me from believing I was worthless. That's what my father's betrayal did. It told me I didn't matter, that my life had no value, that I was disposable. Finding Eleanor's gift told me the opposite. It told me I was loved, that someone saw my worth even when I couldn't, that I was worth protecting. For 2 months, I walked around believing I was nothing, that my father was right to choose my brother, that I was the expendable one, the one who didn't matter, the daughter who never measured up. I stopped looking in mirrors, stopped caring what I wore, this yellow cardigan. I put it on this morning out of habit. It used to be my favorite, cheerful, bright. Now it just feels like a costume, like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. But maybe that's changing. Maybe finding Eleanor's gift is teaching me to see myself the way she saw me. Strong, worthy, deserving of protection and love and security. I don't care about revenge anymore. I don't need to see my father and brother suffer. Their suffering happened naturally. Consequences found them without my help. What I care about is living the life Eleanor wanted for me. Security, peace, freedom. She gave me that. The least I can do is use it well. Sometimes I imagine what I'd say if my father called again. If he somehow got through the blocks. If he showed up at my door. I used to plan speeches, angry words, accusations. I'd tell him exactly what he did to me, exactly how it felt to be betrayed by your own father. But now, I don't think I'd say anything. I'd just close the door. His opinion doesn't matter anymore. His judgment, his disappointment. He doesn't get to define my worth. Eleanor did that, and she said I was worthy of everything. I want you to understand something. When the system fails you, and it will, you have to protect yourself before the crisis comes. You have to have people who leave you weapons even from beyond the grave. Eleanor did that for me. She saw the future and she prepared. She knew the law wouldn't save me. She knew my father's authority as trustee would protect him. She knew I'd need more than hope. And she was right. In California, the law presumes fraud when a caregiver receives gifts in a will. But in New York, the rules are different. Proving forgery is nearly impossible when the forger is family. The courts favor trustees. They assume good faith. Unless you have explicit evidence of fraud, unless you can prove malicious intent, you have no case. I had neither. My father's lawyer made sure of that. The documents were perfect. The transfers were clean.
There was no trail of deception the law would recognize. The attorney explained it to me, showed me case law, precedents, other families destroyed by trustee abuse. The system is designed to protect trustees because most trustees act in good faith. But that means the ones who don't get protected too. It's a flaw in the system, she said. A big one. But it's the system we have. And even if I'd had evidence, even if I could prove what they did, it would have taken years. My father would die before I saw a judgment. The money would be gone. I'd spend my last years fighting a battle I'd never win. That's the reality. The system protects the powerful. It protects family members with authority. It doesn't protect people like me. That's why Eleanor's gift mattered so much. She didn't trust the system to protect me. She didn't trust Dad to do right by me. She trusted herself. She built her own safety net, and she made sure no one could touch it. Do you know what happens in nursing homes? Almost 1 in 6 residents reports experiencing abuse, physical, financial, emotional. And most cases go nowhere because nobody with authority wants to investigate family members. The system assumes families have good intentions. It assumes trustees and caregivers act in the best interest of vulnerable people. But they don't always. Sometimes they steal. Sometimes they forge. Sometimes they drain accounts and leave their own family members with nothing. Patricia told me stories, cases she'd seen in her years at the bank. An elderly man whose son had power of attorney. The son sold his father's house, kept the money, put his father in a state facility. The father tried to report it, but he had dementia. Nobody believed him. He died before anyone investigated. A woman whose daughter controlled her accounts. The daughter withdrew everything, claimed it was for the mother's care, spent it on herself. The mother ended up homeless. Literally homeless, living in a shelter at 83 years old. The stories go on and on. The system fails vulnerable people every single day. That's what my father did to me. And the system let him. The bank let him. The courts would have let him. Because he had authority and I didn't. Because he was trustee and I was just the daughter who never mattered as much as the son. But Eleanor didn't let him. Eleanor saw through it all. And she made sure that when the day came, when I was at my lowest, when I had nothing left, I'd find her waiting. Not in person, not in some miraculous recovery, but in an envelope, in stock certificates, in $450,000 that said, "You matter and I love you and I will never let you fall." My sister has been gone 7 years, but 2 months ago she saved my life. That's what love is. It doesn't end. It doesn't forget. It just waits in a drawer until you're ready to be rescued. I'm getting out of the car now. I'm going inside to finish packing. Tomorrow I sign the lease on my new apartment. It's small, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with enough counter space for me to make banana pudding, a window that faces east so I can watch the sunrise. The duplex is almost empty. Most of my things are already boxed, labeled, ready to move. The furniture that's left is being donated. The couch that sags in the middle, the kitchen table with the uneven leg. Things I've had for decades but don't need anymore. I'm starting fresh. New apartment, new furniture, new life. It's in the old neighborhood where I grew up, where I still have friends who remember me as the girl I was before life got complicated, before my father's choices made me feel small. Betty lives 3 blocks from the new apartment. We went to school together. Lost touch for years, but reconnected at the grocery store last month. She invited me for coffee. We talked for 3 hours. It felt like coming home. She knows about Dad, about my brother. The whole neighborhood knows. Word spreads fast in small communities. But nobody judges me. They judge him. They remember when he used to brag about my brother, talk about the business, the success. He never mentioned me unless someone asked directly. Betty said she always thought he was an ass, said Mom deserved better. I laughed. First real laugh I'd had in months. I'm bringing Eleanor's Bible with me. I'm bringing the letter. I'm bringing the scholarship fund paperwork. I'm bringing my worn Bible that sits on my nightstand open to Psalms. Maybe now I can read it again. Maybe now God won't feel so far away. This morning I tried. Sat with my Bible and a cup of coffee. Opened to Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I've read those words 1,000 times, memorized them as a child, but this morning they felt new. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Refreshes my soul. That's what Eleanor did. That's what this money did. Refreshed my soul when I thought it was dead. I'm leaving behind the duplex, the shared driveway, the thin walls, the block of apartment buildings where kids play and laugh while I sit in my car, afraid to go inside. I'm leaving behind the version of myself who believed my father when he said I didn't matter. I'm leaving behind the fear that I'd die broke and alone. Eleanor made sure I wouldn't. She saw me. She knew me. She loved me enough to plan for my rescue 7 years before I'd need it. That's the kind of love that doesn't die. That's the kind of protection that transcends death. If you're listening to this and you have someone in your life who would do that for you, tell them. Thank them. If you have someone in your life you'd do that for, start planning now. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't assume the system will protect the people you love. Build your own safety nets. Leave your own letters. Make sure that when the worst happens, the people who matter most won't be left with nothing. Call your lawyer. Set up accounts. Write letters. Make plans. Protect the people you love in ways that can't be undone by time or betrayal, or systems that fail. And if you're listening to this because you've been betrayed the way I was, because your family chose someone else over you, because the system failed you and you're sitting in your car right now, not knowing what to do, hear me. You are not alone. You are not worthless. Someone out there loves you enough to leave you something even if you don't know it yet. Keep looking. Keep fighting. Open the drawer you've been avoiding. Read the letter you're afraid to read. Your rescue might be waiting for you in the place you least expect. I didn't get revenge on my father or my brother. I didn't need to. Their choices destroyed them without my help. What I got was something better. I got proof that I mattered, that I was loved, that someone saw my worth even when I couldn't see it myself. Eleanor has been gone 7 years. But she's not really gone. She's in the scholarship fund. She's in the apartment I'm moving to. She's in every sunrise I'll watch from my new window. She's in the banana pudding I'll make on quiet nights when I miss her most. She's in the red ink underlines in her favorite Bible. She's in the safety and peace and freedom she gave me. And she's in this story, the one I'm telling you now. The one that says love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. It becomes a letter, a gift, a scholarship, a second chance, a rescue that arrives exactly when you need it most. So where are you listening from? Have you ever been betrayed by family? Have you ever found an unexpected blessing when you thought you had nothing left? Tell me in the comments. Share your story. Maybe it'll help someone else who needs to hear it. And if this resonated with you, if Eleanor's story and mine gave you hope or made you think about the people you love, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because there are more stories like this. More people who were saved by love that transcended death. More proof that even when the system fails us, even when family abandons us, we are never truly alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me tell you about Eleanor, about the sister who protected me even from the grave, about the inheritance that saved my life. I'm going inside now. I'm going to pack the last of my things, and tomorrow I'm going to start living the life she wanted for me, the life she made possible, the life that says I matter, because I do, and so do you.